But let's talk about Wisconsin and expectations, because 10 years ago, Wisconsin's expectation was to win 10 games a year, but never compete for the national championship. Now they can't win 10 games, but if they ever could, they'd be in the playoff.
If Wisconsin could morph back to what it was in 2016, they would be an annual playoff team.
Yes.
Year over year. Now, the knock on the expanded playoff to me was always letting teams in that weren't great, have a seat on the dance floor. And maybe if this system existed in 2016, they would crave a win or two in that playoff. But now they've reverted back to being so out of what they used to be that they would die to be back to what they were.
River, put that schedule up again, by the way. This schedule is nasty. If you're listening in podcast form, they've got Alabama in Tuscaloosa at a conference. They kick off Big Ten play with Maryland. That's it for easy Big Ten games. And I don't even know if that's going to be easy for them. It goes Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota after that. That is a brutal schedule. We keep asking, what Big Ten team would trade its 9-game schedule for an 8-game SEC schedule. I don't think most of them would. I think Wisconsin would trade for quite a few of them because Wisconsin's schedule is awful.
The toughest thing about Wisconsin's schedule isn't necessarily the fact that they are incapable of winning most of those games, is that there's no reprieve.
Yes,
and back in the day, like playing Indiana, Illinois, and Minnesota would have been buffer games in between. Minnesota.
This is like the Oklahoma schedule. This is like that back half of the Oklahoma schedule where it's just it's the last 8 for them. It is just nonstop.
I mean, if you really want to dive into the Wisconsin discussion, let's dive into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
We were recording a episode late last week where we were going through and kind of coming up with some teams' identities, right?
Right.
If you remember correctly, or if I'm remembering correctly, your Minnesota one was run the ball well and play great defense, right?
Right.
It's
Which also is Wisconsin and Iowa.
Is Wisconsin still that?
It's supposed to be, but Luke Fickell tried to get away from that, and I understand why. Because divisions were going away. He's trying to build a team that can win the Big Ten, but they never got players that worked in that offense. They never had any speed on the outside. If you're going to do that, if you're going to run an offense like that, you need to have a lot of speed, and they didn't have it.
Well, and it's to me, who I don't ever criticize and is Luke Fickell. And I think that he probably deserves to be criticized, but if you put yourself in his position, I think that there is a debate about whether or not moving away from what was working to get you to 10 games was a smart decision. But if you go back to the way in which Wisconsin fired Paul Chryst, the amount of money it took to get Luke Fickell, who at the time was one of the hottest coaches in the carousel, they hired him to be better than
that.
But
my thinking was they hired him, and also he took the job because they were going to put in the resources to get good players in this era where you can pay players, pay a bunch of players. And they haven't done that. They have not been super active in the transfer portal to try to get. I know a guy, Big Cat, said he had a conversation with John Mateer trying to get him to Wisconsin, but Oklahoma tried a lot harder. Let's be real. Miami tried a lot harder to get John Mateer.
We're going to be this year a podcast that says I had an epiphany today that we're going to say the things, or I'm going to. You can go along for the ride that are usually, meant silent, but we're going to be entertaining. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think if Luke Fickell were in this room and we shut off the camera, that's getting to a weird place, but I don't know where it's going.
I think he would punch us and leave if we shut off the camera and turn out the lights.
You gave him an honest question.
Yeah.
Do you regret taking this job? What do you think he would say?
Oh, I don't know if he would regret it, but I do wonder if he would say, this is not what I was told was going to happen.
Because on the surface, I think about it.
But how much of it is him and how much is the administration? We don't know that. But
here's my thought on it.
They should be spending the way Penn State and Ohio State are spending. They're also rich.
I know that it's very easy to fall back into the portal talent accumulation conversation, but I want to go a little bit
it could be
bigger.
High school talent too.
I want to go bigger though.
Okay.
Luke Fickell had a really good thing going at Cincinnati. I think in large part because Cincinnati, especially when it was in a group of 5 team.
Can I say the unpopular thing or the potentially unpopular thing?
I think I was going to get there, but you can go for it.
How much of it was Marcus Freeman?
Oh, that's not what I was going to say.
That's what I'm asking.
No, what I was going to say is that most coaches that went to Cincinnati were successful because it was up in a way the most
Right.
highly
Cincinnati,
situated.
yeah, Cincinnati was a very well-run program at its level, and it allowed its coaches to do really well. So we're talking about Mark D'Antonio, we're talking about Brian Kelly, Butch Jones, Senator Tuberville did not do well there, but then Luke did. And then,
but he coached Mahomes though.
And recruited. Oh wait, no, he didn't do either. But Marcus Freeman was also on those early staffs at Cincinnati. Are we sure?
There's no way to quantify
that didn't have something to do with it.
There's no way to quantify that. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But what I do know is, if you break down Luke Fickell's decision to take the Wisconsin job, that he was going to modernize what they did well and make it better. If the best fit for him is going to a place and trying to change the identity of what works so well. Like that's the thing. It's like, that's not just taking a job. You're taking a place and you're fundamentally having to shift everything that worked for them to make them better.
You can do that, but you have to get the talent to play that way. And this is why I refuse to lay this completely at the feet of Luke Fickell, because I'm sure it can't all be him. It can't be Luke Fickell came in and was like, well, we're not going to spend any money, but we're going to radically shift the scheme. I don't think that's what happened. I think Luke Fickell went in with the idea that they were going to try to compete the way Ohio State competes, the way Penn State competes, the way Michigan competes, and they are not trying to do that. How do we know that? Because they're not getting any of the players that those teams are getting.
Also went into it with Wisconsin being a much different place than it is right now. When Wisconsin, when he took it, he wasn't, in his mind, probably thinking that I have to fix a fractured program. And maybe part of the evolution is what fractured it.
He has said that multiple times. That is that has been made very clear.
Because we were talking when he was a free agent. Hey, Luke Fickell doesn't have to take the first job. He can pick and choose what's right. But the thing that
that's what I assumed is he popped the hood on Wisconsin. I think I said that a million times. He popped the hood on Wisconsin, liked what he saw, because he could have just stayed at Cincinnati. Or he could. Now I'm not so sure, because I'm not sure I understand why, when you paid for Luke Fickell and you paid a lot of money for Luke Fickell, you didn't give him the rest of the stuff he was going to need to compete in this era.
And if he would have taken a job, and I'm making stuff up right now, but just try to picture Luke Fickell being at USC, or Luke Fickell being at a place that didn't have to alter its identity to be successful, and he could play Cincinnati football there while also be given the resources.
Which, by the way, Cincinnati football was not like some boring. They got really good athletes, better athletes than Cincinnati had been getting, even though Cincinnati had also been recruiting well through those other years.
Gardner and Desmond Ritter, they had NFL players.
They had dudes, absolutely.
I think Jerome Ford was on that team.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have NFL players that were on that team, but I just keep coming back to Luke Fickell had no choice but to try to change things. And then maybe he effed around and found out that trying to change the thing that they were is impossible. And the reason they were that thing is because doing it the other way was impossible. And you might be arrogant enough, and not that that's a bad thing. I would be arrogant enough, and if I were in his position too, to think you can change it. But all the money in the world, they're a rich program. They're still not going out and getting a receiver that can jump over and grab a ball from
but why
somebody
not?
out of Alabama.
Why not?
But what program has successfully altered who they are?
Throw the money at somebody. But yes, I agree.
How many have done it?
Look, we see what they're doing this year. They are trying to get back to it. So the hiring of Jeff Grimes, who was at Kansas last year, to be their offensive coordinator. Jeff Grimes is an offensive line coach by trade. He's been a good offensive coordinator. He was at BYU when they were really, really good. And they also, they ran the ball well and they threw the ball well. So it's understandable what they're doing now, that they're trying to get back to what they do well. They're trying to develop offensive linemen the way they used to. And I think
it kind of reminds me of like going on a GPS path.
Mm-hmm.
You type in a road trip and then driving, 2 hours in the wrong direction without the map realizing it and having to go a U-turn. And like your number one goal now is to get back to where you started so you can build off of that again because you veered too much off the path. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but it feels like the goal for Wisconsin is to remember again what they were when they fired Paul Christ, which is insane. Like it's an insane thing to think about.
They weren't what they wanted to be when they fired Paul Christ either.
That's right.
So they want to be back to what they were early
when
Paul
they
Christ
fired
era,
him and who they
Brett
fired,
Bielema era,
when they fired
Barry
him,
Alvarez era. Yeah.
When they fired him and who they hired was an implication that the 10-win thing wasn't enough.
Yeah. And they can still do this because you can pay enough and get people to come play for you. That's how this works now. So
I don't know if this is bad podcasting or going to make me look stupid. I couldn't name a single receiver on their team this year.
well, Will Pauling was the one you could have named, and now he's at Notre
gone.
Dame.
So who is it? Who's their number one target? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm already admitting that I don't know.
Who's their quarterback?
I don't know.
Billy Edwards Jr. He came from
I knew
Maryland.
that. I knew that. I knew that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a very different situation, and this is not what they're used to. It's
Billy Edwards Jr. was the guy that people thought was going to go to Michigan, right?
There was talk.
Yeah.
And then Michigan signed Underwood.
Yeah, and then Wisconsin got him. I remember that now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
Billy and Billy Edwards Jr. I mean,
but I'm trying to
I think Mike Loxley's been pretty clear. Like Billy Edwards Jr. The feelers were out for him during the season last year. So
I'm trying to be vulnerable. And by being vulnerable, because there are a lot of sports people out there in my position that would never admit to not knowing something or not, or being wrong about something, heaven forbid. But we're in year 3, or is this year 4?
This is year 3.
Year 3 of Fickle, and I can't name a single receiver on their team, and that was supposed to be the difference. So I don't know if it's a Fickle problem or if it's a Wisconsin problem, if it's a money problem, but something like I wrote the column last year when we went to cover the Bama game. I was like, I watched this team play, and they fought hard. But it felt like watching 4 quarters of a team trying to figure out what it was. And
now the quarterback did get hurt during that game.
So would it have mattered? Honestly,
not
it would have mattered.
Game. It wouldn't have mattered. Not in that game.
I just and maybe because the quarterback got injured, it was harder for them to process what they wanted to do or execute their plan. But it was like, were they trying to run the ball? Were they trying to throw the ball? It was just like I didn't know.
Anthony, by the way, actually had a pretty good year last year. So
somebody does.
39 catches for 672 yards. This is 17-yard average. Pretty good, given the circumstances.
Yeah.
So,
but somebody has
back.
Somebody has to catch passes.
Yeah. So that's the situation there. So their schedule's brutal. The good news for Luke Fickell is he's way too expensive to fire. So
how many more years is that true for?
It's true for a while, like probably 2 more years.
Okay.
I want to say it's $31 million this year.
So what's the goal for Wisconsin football this year?
Survive.
And what does survival look like? 6-6?
Maybe. I mean, this is a tough schedule. This is awful.
Got Miami win, Middle Tennessee win, Maryland hopefully a win. That's 3, and then you go.
And then everything
2-2
else is
against
hard.
Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, and Iowa.
That's the hope. But that doesn't get you to 6.
Is that 5? Bad at
It's only 5.
Yeah. Yeah. 6 would be good, I guess. But
all right, let's. We've tortured the poor Wisconsin fans enough.
Hey, but you know what? That wasn't planned. That was organic, and I like organic conversation.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to have this conversation too, because as that season goes along, and maybe they'll surprise us. Because here's the thing: if you can play well against that schedule and win 7 or 8 games against that schedule, then you should feel pretty good going into it.
And this is the thing that's so tough about college football. It's not like Luke Fickell sucks as a coach.
No,
a lot of it is circumstance and timing.
Well, and a lot of it is, and we've talked about this with other coaches who got hired around the same time. The whole world changed. So the thing that made them successful might not work anymore.
Also, you pop the hood on the program, but what's under the hood changes,
right?
Because of other things.
Or they can say all these things in the hiring process, but then the world changes on you, and you're like, well,
you pop the hood on Wisconsin football, because he took this job before USC and Washington and Oregon and UCLA showed up, right? So when you pop the hood on Wisconsin football during his hiring process, is the radiator different because those 4 teams are in it now in the conference, right? Like everything changes,
right?
And that might have changed how you viewed the automobile. Stick with that analogy.
Yeah, I mean everything has changed for everybody. And when you got hired, like Luke Fickell was named the coach Thanksgiving weekend 2022.
So that was before, yeah.
Yeah. So no, it was before NIL, but
no, it was before UCLA and USC, right?
I think we knew they were coming. We knew UCLA and USC were coming. We did not know that Washington and Oregon were coming yet.
Yeah.
But he knew divisions were going away. He worked for a divisionless, like that was the whole point. He was going to change everything. He had to stop trying to win the West, because that wasn't going to matter anymore. And it was about trying to compete in the Big Ten. It was
about beating Ohio State.
Exactly. But they haven't done anything. And in fact, they are worse than they were when they were trying to win the Big Ten West. So that is the issue now.